I'm going to kick this review off by thanking my dark and twisted, yet lovely and beautiful wife who recommended this book to me. It is titled Ripe. It is by Sarah Rose Etter. She loved it. She read it in one sitting on a plane ride. And this book is dark. It is twisted. It is bleak. It is hopeless. So if that is something you're into, you're really going to like this book. And spoiler alert, I really like this book. And I hope you stick around for the entirety of the review so I can convince you to read this one too. But before we begin with the review, what is The Hook? What is Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter about? Cassie moved to San Francisco to start a new life as a copywriter at a startup called Voyager, followed by the black hole that has been with her as far as she can remember. Navigating a high-stress job and the dystopian streets of San Francisco, will she survive or be swallowed whole? This book does so many creative things in so many ways, but I'm going to start with character, as I always do, because you guys know out there that I love it. And the characterization in this book, it's great, it's fantastic. Everybody feels real. And you guys know that that's kind of a big gripe with me with reading novels, is that a lot of times the people, they feel like, I don't want to say cardboard cutouts, but they feel not quite three-dimensional. It feels like they maybe only exist in the book that you're reading and don't have a life outside of it. Cassie definitely does. So Cassie, she feels, again, she feels very real. She feels she's broken. She's traumatized. She is struggling like we all are, right, in life. She moved to a very expensive city to live in, San Francisco. Her pay is all right, but the job she works at, it's high stress. A lot of people would envy her position, and I think this is kind of just what the world is in the life of a startup, someone working for a startup. So I work at an ad agency, so let me put that out there first and foremost, and that sometimes the characterization might feel a little bit like caricature, but I assure you, these people exist. I've met these people. I may work with some of these people. Not all of them. Most of you guys out there, if you ever watch this, you guys know I love you and really appreciate all that you do. But yeah, I know some people that resemble people in this book. And at the back of this book, there's an interview with Sarah Rose Etter about her experience. Now, I don't want to say this book is entirely autobiographical, but yes, she did move across the country to take a copywriting job at a startup. So there you go. However, the other interesting thing about Cassie, the character in this book, is there is a black hole following her around. So this is a little bit of magical realism, but is it metaphor or is it reality? I don't quite know, and that's what I love so much about the book, is that there's nobody around her that validates that this black hole does exist. So it's hovering over her, it shrinks, it expands, it changes position. Like I said, she's been around this for as long as she can remember. It seems to be expanding as shown in the graphic design and the layout of this book. So what's great about this black hole is it's almost a character in itself, right? It's starting to react to the things that she is going through, her mental state, and it really enhances the characterization because not that Cassie isn't forthcoming with everything she's, dealing with. It's cool to see the black hole either react in parallel, kind of what you would think, but then other times it reacts a little bit differently, which makes you wonder, is she truly being honest with us, the readers, or is there some kind of subtextual thing going on that we can't quite read, that we look at this black hole for answers? And there's so many great little touches that Sarah Rose Etter does in this to enhance the characterization. So back to making Cassie feel real. So she comments on things like her the stubble on her legs, the bruises on her legs, how she doesn't find herself attractive, how she talks about the bags under her eyes, the dark circles under her eyes, and just how the entire world is weighing down on her. But she has like a fake personality she puts on at work and around her friends to fit in, right? To fit into the culture, to make herself not stand out. But really, it's just a means for her to get through the day so she can go back to her apartment, get yelled at by this homeless guy that's always out there, close the door, and hopefully get some sleep. And to make matters worse, she is in a relationship. She's in a relationship she enjoys. And why did I say worse? Well, it's worse because this guy, who we don't really know his name, we only know him as the chef, he's in an open relationship. And the only rule he tells her is he can't fall in love, right? I'm sure any of you guys out there who have heard about open relationships have heard that being the only rule you cannot break: don't fall in love. So it's really sad. I'm sure you can see how her life, she's living in an expensive area. Her work is incredibly stressful. She has a boyfriend whom she cares about. However, he's with another girl, so she doesn't really ever have him. But before I move on from character, I want to talk about her parents really quick. So I really love the dynamic with her mom and dad. So her mom and dad, they live back home, back east. Her dad, it seems like he used to have some kind of successful sales job of some kind, but now he works at a grocery store. They never explain why, but I love it because she calls her dad periodically to kind of, I don't know, look for a shoulder to cry on, to almost look for him to ask her to come home, to receive that validation, that acceptance, to just, hey, you know what? This isn't worth it. Come back home. We'll figure stuff out. I don't want you to be stressed out. But she kind of hides that. She's almost like trying to pull it out of her dad. And it's funny because her dad will have these conversations with her while he's stocking shelves and stuff. And he's really excited about his job. And even though you know he's not making much money because he's stocking shelves at a grocery store. But in the flashbacks, her parents are very eager to send her off for a quote unquote better life, to go work at this startup, to go be a better person, you know, climb your way to the top, make all the money. But they're so consumed with their own careers. Actually, I think the dad is the only one who works, but there's scenes where they're sitting around the table having dinner and he's just talking about work, constantly talking about work. And so while you can tell that Cassie's father loves her very, very much and her mother does love her, even though her mother is pretty dysfunctional, there's always this barrier between these characters and you never really feel like there's a true connection. I mean, you can tell that they all love each other, but they never are really able to cross that threshold. It's almost like life itself and expectations are these barriers that are kind of dividing these people. And again, that's more beautiful commentary because I'm sure those of you out there who have left the roost, so to speak, gone away to college, maybe graduated, got a job, you know, your parents, they always want you to have a better life than they had. They want you to, they think they know what's best for you essentially, right? As parents often do. And they mean well, but I feel like in the modern era, we tend to value, you know, quote unquote success over happiness. And that is explored very deeply in this book. And so with every phone call between Cassie and her father, you're waiting for this true connection to happen, this tipping point where he's going to ask her to come home or say, you know, it's not worth it, come back, I want you to be happy, I don't care about this. And right before you think that's going to happen, it doesn't happen. And you are hurled back into the darkness along with Cassie. All right, I think I'm going to end it there, but the characterization here, it's deep, it's fascinating, it's extremely relatable, especially if you're old enough to have gone to school, graduated, and maybe moved away to get a job. So let us talk about plot next, and the plot is very simple. And this is one thing that really had me question my enjoyment of this book because stuff happens, but not a lot of stuff happens. It's more literary in that regard, I guess, where, you know, she goes to get this job. She meets a man, has a relationship. She has some friends. She deals with all the crap at her job. And then she deals with something else, something that is life-shattering, you might say, but I'm not going to spoil that for you. I want you to read it for yourself. But let's talk about structure really quick because, and I know this is going to bleed a little bit into the writing section, but you'll notice there's a pomegranate on the cover, right? And this is another reason why I love this book so much. It's because there's so much depth. There's so many things that are intertwined. There's so much commentary. There's so much metaphor. So here is the anatomy of a pomegranate. And you'll see there is the mesocarp, the exocarp, the membrane, and the seeds, right? And you're working your way from the outside in. And that is exactly how this novel is structured. I will show you when I turn to the next page and you see exocarp. Now, exocarp is the skin, of course, and you'll notice that it's also a dictionary definition, which is another cool technique she employs in this book. So it's like we're peeling back an onion of her character, right? We're going layer by layer by layer until we get to the heart of everything, the seed. And that is when things really get dark. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about with plot, because I don't want to spoil it for you, I really want you to experience this for yourself, is that it's hopeless as hell. Okay, it's bleak as hell. There is no hope in this book. And I think that's the one interesting thing that the author is playing with here is that in a traditional narrative, we often wait for the moment that the hero is going to rise up and solve all of her problems. She's, in this case, maybe she's going to be with this guy and this guy is going to leave his other woman, or she's going to reconnect with her parents and they're going to move beyond their differences. And we always think in the back of our minds, because we're so used to like the traditional hero's journey story structure, but that's not how this thing is structured. But for some reason, I was utterly compelled to keep reading and reading and reading and reading, which is strange because I often criticize novels for being too one note or having a single trajectory. And this one kind of does. It's like it's like the character starts up here and just tumbles all the way down to the end, and then it's over. But I loved it. I loved it. I do love dark stuff. I like bleak stuff. So maybe that's not for you, but again, I still encourage you to read it because there's so many great things about it. All right, let's move on to the writing itself, or as I like to call it, the cinematography of the novel. The greatest thing about this book, and it's one thing that, because if you guys don't know, I write as well, it's that deceptively simple prose. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm sure you guys out there have read books that are purple, you might say. They're poetic, they're written beautifully, but they're very purple. Sarah Rose Etter, what she does here is she has very simple prose. It doesn't bog you down reading it. It's incredibly easy to understand, but there's like a poetry to it. There's a music to it. And the great thing about that is this book is written in first person present tense. So it's from the voice of Cassie. But the writing style here is perfect because Cassie is a copywriter. She's a creative writer. So it totally makes sense that you're getting this kind of language from this person. Now, I don't want you to think it's like reading a poem or it's overly purple, like I said. It's really simply written, but very, very beautiful and very evocative. Very much like Cormac McCarthy's writing, in my opinion, where it's very simple, but he does so much with so few words. That's kind of the vibe I got from reading this. Not that the writing is like Cormac McCarthy, but it evokes the same sense of artistry, I guess. So let's talk about the way that she did flashbacks. Normally, I can't stand flashbacks. I like the story to constantly move forward. But what she did is a very, very clever thing. And that is she used dictionary definitions. I know, it sounds exciting, right? I swear it is. So you can see right here, this is memory. And then it has multiple definitions, as dictionaries often do. And then after that, she tells a story in that context. So this one's memory, the faculty by which the mind stores and remembers information, or something remembered from the past, a recollection. So she uses these definitions as a framing device for the flashback. And the coolest thing, and it doesn't happen very often in this book, is some words, as you know, might be a noun and a verb. And that's how she treats the flashback. So she will use the noun definition and use it in the flashback, but as a noun, and then the verb definition as an action. So I know this sounds kind of confusing, but it'll totally make sense. And it was, I really loved getting to these sections. And like I said, this is coming from a guy who can't stand flashbacks. Now there's another thing. Remember I talked about black holes, this black hole following around? So there's these graphical elements in the book too, and they shift, let's just say. And on this side, you can see there are notes and research from black holes. So she did a lot of research about black holes for this book. So you science nerds out there will probably love this. But again, it's used metaphorically, which is so damn good, right? So she has actual black hole definitions and sort of the science therein, but it's all for metaphor. It's all for literary reasons. Fantastic writing, top to bottom. I don't have anything bad to say about it. It flows, it reads quickly, it reads beautifully. There's so much depth, so much metaphor. Just the construction of the book, from the dictionary definitions for the flashbacks to the anatomy of the pomegranate, which I wish I could get into because it's so good. With all that said, I'm going to give Right by Sarah Rose Etter a 9 out of 10. A bleak and hopeless tale of a young woman trying to just make it in life, full of top-notch characterization, with a plot that feels true to life in the best way, and writing that hypnotizes, and you can tell that she scrutinized over every damn word. Are you convinced yet? I really hope you are. I'm looking forward to reading her other one, which funny enough has a protagonist by the same name. But that's it for the review. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments if you read Right by Sarah Rose Etter, and if you'd like to check out my own creative work that may or may not have as many layers as a pomegranate, you can check out the Amazon link down below. And thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.